Okay, I'm here with international professional wrestling stars to talk about his past, his future, whatever else we can get into. So, Mr. Regal, how did you get started in the wrestling business?
Told this story lots and lots of times. My grandfather was a professional wrestler. Bill Matthews used to wrestle as the Iron Duke. Started in 1919 and finished 1932. He got pleurisy and pneumonia, couldn't wrestle anymore. And I grew up pretty much with him. He lived 100 yards. His house where my father was born and the house that I was born in, which my father built, 100 yards apart, if that. And so I spent most of my time with him growing up and filled my head full of nonsense about wanting to be a wrestler. So when I was 15, I went to amusement park in Blackpool, England, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and there was a wrestling booth there, and I went up and asked the promoter if I wanted to be a professional wrestler, and he said, "Go and challenge this."
But they were real fights, though, right? That wasn't what you see on TV now. You stepped in the ring for your first bout. Was that a shoot fight?
Mine was. It was set up to where if anybody wanted to fight, they used to take challenges out of the crowd. If anybody wanted to, as long as they hadn't been drinking, they could come in.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10, it was plants in the audience,
Yeah.
because that was how we got people to come in.
Right.
Wasn't to watch wrestling. It was to watch what they thought was one of them.
Yeah, I see.
And so, most times, who's in the right mind is going to come up and want to fight a wrestler, or fight somebody. So we have to put our guys in. But if there's anybody wanted to go, they've got the opportunity, and that's what he sent me to do. He said, just go and do it. So I went out.
At 15?
15, little headstrong kid, and went out there and did it, and got slapped around a bit, and more humiliation than anything. Just.
Yeah. Do you remember who it was against?
Yes, a wrestler. Used to wrestle in England and Germany for many years. Wrestled as Colonel Brody, Sean Brody. He's quite a big guy.
Yeah.
And
didn't hurt you though?
Yeah, he slapped me about. And,
yeah.
What are you going to do to a 15-year-old kid when you're a big guy? You can make him. He just tried to put me off going back, but I just kept going back, and eventually, after a while, the promoter said, "You really want to do this, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to do it." And then they took me on, so I used to get there early in the morning and put the ring up and hang around and go out in the crowd and do whatever they needed doing. And they used to, in between shows, somebody would get in the ring with me and teach me little bits of things.
Right.
And then in England, you do school from 4 till 16, you finish high school at 16, and I left school when I was 16, where most of my friends went into apprenticeships, being engineers or whatever. I went to be a wrestler.
And so how long did you work the Carnival route for?
I did that, the actual season there is from Easter until November, and I left school on May the 18th, 1984. I was doing it like on weekends the year before, but officially leaving school I went there full time till November, first week in November. And then after that it was just regular house shows throughout England in the winter, I didn't get too many that first winter. I didn't get that many shows in the winter. Came round to Easter again, was full time on there. We just do 21 shows a week. Through the
21 shows in 1 week? Yeah. That's a pretty big schedule.
Yeah, it was a pretty big schedule. And then
that's got to be tough on the body, huh?
Well, it was the most fun. It was just a big adventure to me and excitement. I didn't think about anything. I was just happy to be there. I mean, when you're 16 and living away from home and got your own apartment and money coming in, not a lot of money, but enough for me to think I was loaded, I used to get, I think when I was 16, I used to get £5 a show, which is like $7.50 a show.
Yeah.
But 21 of them a week, when you're 16, a pocket full of money, going out every night, and, in a town where I live, it's a big vacation resort, I was having a blast, it was great. Thinking, sitting in gloves on the night time with a cigar, thinking I'm a big wrestler, you know. It's ridiculous, but you know, it was just a big adventure to me. It was great. And then that following winter I got more work. And then the following year, it really took off for me as far as plenty, you know, constantly working all the time. And I wasn't always at the amusement park in the summer. Then I'd go off travelling around. In the way it worked in England, there was the regular house shows through most of the winter. Well, from September till probably April, and then through the summer months, it was all those finished. It was all the coastal towns, all the seaside, the vacation resorts. So I was doing those, and then I'd go back and do a week on the Carnival. I'd go down and do a week there, and then maybe go to Scotland for a week around there, things, and doing that, and constantly busy all the time then. And then I think it was 1997, my first trip out of the country. I went to Israel for a week, and I came back. It was in the summer. I came back and went working all the time, constantly. You know, I used to work every day.
When did you first meet up with WCW? How did they find you?
Right. Well, we'll get there.
We're getting there. All right.
It's a long story. It keeps going and going and going. Then 1998, I started getting a lot of breaks, and that's where I've been real fortunate in having had a lot of good breaks. I went to go to France for the summer, and because it's only an hour flight from Manchester, which is an hour from where I live, to Paris. So I would fly over, do 3 or 4 days, fly back for 3 or 4 days, and just keep going throughout the summer like that all summer long. And then September I had my first tournament in Germany, which was Hamburg, which was 7 weeks. So I went there, which was great. Came back, worked England for a few months. January I worked in England, and then February I went to South Africa for the first time. And that was what it was like my life until I came to America in 1993. It was, 4 or 5 months in Germany, sometimes as much as 7 months in Germany, South Africa, India, anywhere there was, the phone. As soon as I got in the house, it was real good at the time, because the thing in England was, I luckily got on, there was Tony Sinclair, David Taylor, Pete Roberts, people like that. It was like a group of guys, heavyweight guys, because in England it was mostly smaller wrestlers, and if you were big, you didn't get any work, or they didn't really want to use you. Bigger guys got more money to go out of the country, to all around Europe and around Africa and that. So, I started off getting plenty of work when I was smaller, and as I got bigger and taller, because I'm really big for England. Most English guys are a lot smaller, So it was, as soon as I get in the house, it'd be, can you come, I'd have 2 days off, can you come to Spain for a week, can you come here, can you come, and that was what it was like constantly. I met a lot of people along the way, obviously doing that. I met Scott Hall in 1989 for quite a while, and spent a lot of time with him in Germany. And I met a lot of people, different places here, there and everywhere. Then 1991, luckily I got fired from the tournament in Hamburg. It was a 7-week tournament, and at the beginning of the year there was like a 2 or 3 week deal for somebody else in another part of Germany, and the promoter said, if you work this, you can't work for me in September. I said, well, this other guy gave me a few weeks in Germany and a few weeks. I said, he used to pay me more money. I said, do you want me to sit at home all year long so I can work 7 weeks for you and not be able to work anywhere else? I said, make no sense. So we fell out, and just luckily at the time, it came to September and I had no work. And then all of a sudden, I was sat in the house and I was thinking, what am I going to... I knew something had come up, but I was sat there for about 3 days. I had a letter come off the WWF to ask me to go and try out at the Royal Albert Hall. They did a pay-per-view from there.
Okay.
And I did a tryout match there. And then I did some other few things here, there and everywhere.
What did they tell you at that time?
At the time, they said, we'll put you on record, and we're like,
Yeah.
Didn't hear anything.
Right.
In fact, when I came to America for the first year and a half I was working for WCW, they were still sending letters. I think they send out a letter every so many months.
Right.
With coming to my house in England saying you're still on file. And
Wow.
Whatever happened there. But that same year, I came November time, I get a phone call. I still don't know to this day if it was Scott or somebody put my name forward. They were short of somebody in England. WCW had the first tour of England, and somebody was short, and they asked me to go. And so I spent the whole week with them, to like the big cities, and then we flew over to Dublin and Ireland for one show. And they all said, yeah, we like you, and the agents there said, we want you to work for us, and we'll get back to you. And I didn't hear anything, so I just went about my business. The next 1992, I worked January, February, England, then March I went to India for a month. Came back, went to South Africa for a month, came back, went to Egypt, came back, worked 2 weeks in England, then went away to Austria for 3 months and Germany for 4 months. And the tour was going to finish 2 days before Christmas, I think. So I was just booked up constantly. I never.
Yeah.
I spent 9 months away from home. And when I was at home, I was working every night. So.
Wow.
But in September, I got I sent a letter to WCW, as I used to send them out. Every time I moved somewhere, to a different place, I just send them a letter. Try and remind everybody about it. And it was when Bill Watts went in there, and I got a letter immediately. Well, my wife got a phone call in England. Said to call him immediately, so I called, and he said, yeah, put your passport details in. When can you start? Can you start
Bill
straight?
Watts?
Yeah, he said, can you start straight away? I said, no, I said, I've just given my word that I'll be here till Christmas, He said, well, give me your passport details. We'll start you on this amount of money. I couldn't believe it,
And now, had he seen you?
You
had no contact with him before?
No contact with me, anything but he'd asked a lot of people about me that had seen me, So, I should have came the first week of January, and there was some mix-up with my visa. I couldn't get my visas from London or something. I don't know, I eventually had to go and get them myself. And I came and arrived on the 23rd of January, and then the 25th was my first time at TV. And it was like pulling teeth for about 4 months. It was awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. I hated it. Because
the TV tapings, or just the Federation?
No, not the Federation. But when I came here, Bill Watts said to me, he said, I don't want you to be a babyface. I don't want you to be a heel. I just want you to be a wrestler. An English-style wrestler. I said, okay, I can do that. But then, to be an English-style wrestler, you've got to go out and wrestle for 30 minutes to make it mean anything. And then he'd say, yeah, right, go out 3 minutes with this guy. And so you just can't do it,
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that they wanted, they kept saying, well, do this. We saw Billy Robinson, always mentioning Billy Robinson all the time. So Billy Robinson used to do this move and this move. And guys here weren't used to that, and you got to put them in stuff, and they didn't know what to do, and then I got to put them in a cravat or something, and they'd think I was head there and snap there, and they would already be falling, and stuff like that. My first ever match, I just went to put that on somebody, and they were already falling on the floor, and I'm stood there looking at them, like, and it was just like that. It was absolutely horrible. I just couldn't.
Do you think they wanted to see how the fans were going to react to you, whether they decided on?
I don't know. Well, another thing as well, right at the time I came here, so did Davey Boy, so they had their English babyface, because they had TV in England, good TV. I think that was another thing, put me doing something different, didn't want me like him, which I'm not anyway, but we wanted two different things. What you need a lot of English guys for, and you need one or two, So that was how it was, and then this is my version of the story, and I'm sticking to it. I said, Bill Dundee was working in the office at the time, and I said, I'd be better off doing this thing. When I used to work in India and Africa, I was never called Lord, but I used to do that kind of that same gimmick,
Right.
When I was in England, I was just Steve Regal, just babyface, but when I worked in, I always wanted to do that Lord thing, because I'd seen Alfred Hayes do it, but I thought I could do it well, so I said to Bill Dundee, you need to do this. I said, because being a heel doing my thing, I'm different,
Right.
And the kind of wrestling that I do I've got to be aggressive and doing things to people. And I said, it doesn't work trying to be just, straight faced. I said, no, I could do this and do that. And it took about 2 or 3 months, and eventually Dusty came to me one day. He said, I've got a great idea for you. He said, we're going to call you Lord Stephen Regal, and we're going to put a manager with you, who originally was going to be Larry Zbyszko. That was his original idea, was to put Larry with me. Because Larry's real name's Whistler. His family, I believe, are English. Larry Whistler. But I don't know. Well, I know what happened. Bill Dundee got in there and so he could make some more money, and so he's backdoored him and went in, which I was glad of because it worked out good with me and Bill for a while.
Yeah. Well, you ended up feuding with Larry Zbyszko.
Yeah, which was very good as well. We had a good thing. We had a real good thing going. We did some good matches.
Didn't you also wrestle Antonio Inoki for WCW?
Yes.
That must have got you a lot of press overseas because I mean.
It was funny that if you go back and watch that match now, and people that were there, Nick Patrick was refereeing it, he remembers it. I absolutely kicked the hell out of him. And if you watch it now, it's brutal, I mean, really.
I remember.
People didn't understand it at all at that time. I remember them writing things about it. It was the worst match they'd ever seen, worst match of the year and everything. And then within 12 months, they were at the Ultimate Fight thing started, and people would say how great it was,
Right.
But that was the first thing anybody had seen like that, and I don't care what anybody says. If you go back and watch that, I mean, absolutely booting the hell out of him, and dragging him around, and people just didn't understand it.
How did that come to be that you even got locked up in a feud with him?
From what I gather, and I could be wrong, but this is what I've been told, he asked for me.
Did he?
When they were doing a deal with WCW, he wanted to come over here and he wanted to beat one of their champions, and he asked personally for me. That's what I was told. I could be way off the mark there, but all the Japanese guys really all know how to wrestle English style. Most of them have been to England and spent a lot of time there. Especially when they're straight out of the dojo, they used to send them all to England for a year and then to Germany and stuff. So they all know that kind of style, and from what I gather, he liked what he saw, and that's why he did that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I remember at the time when that was happening. I mean, that was the biggest match that everyone was looking forward to on that event. Believe it, I mean, whatever anybody says.
I mean,
but
it's true, but I mean, everybody just hated it, but people that mattered. I remember Terry Funk being there, and Terry Funk came out and I said, what do you think? He said it was perfect, that's exactly what he wanted. And this wasn't for what American people, this wasn't for what WCW, this was for Antonio Inoki.
Right.
This was for him, to please him, so he'd do a deal with WCW.
Right.
And Terry Funk told me, he said, that was excellent. He said, that's exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
That was what, and now I knew I'd done my job right.
Yeah. That helped lead to the merger with them and the Japanese organization.
I'm not sure if it was that led to the merger, but it was part of it.
Right. Right.
And then I got to go a lot, and I did a lot of good things, a lot of championship matches and things over there. I enjoyed it. I still do if I go.
Yeah. So what ended up them finally deciding that you were gonna be a tag team wrestler? Because you had a successful run as a singles.
Well, I'm not sure how it came about that they wanted us for me to go into a tag team, but it started off with Triple H. It was John Paul Levesque. Yeah. And we started off together, and it was real good for about 6 or 8 weeks. And we trained a lot together at WCW's gym, the power plant. We trained a lot together and got used to it. Then we did about 6 weeks worth of stuff, and then his deal was up, and he had the chance to go to New York, and he asked me what to do, and I think he'd made his mind, but I told him to go, I said, you need to work every night.
Right.
I wasn't working that much in WCW time, so you need to go. I said, because I just knew he had talent. He's got tons of talent. But if you've got talent, you need to work all the time, and we weren't working that much. At the time, they cut the schedule real down, and it wasn't really fair on him, So I knew he had everything that was needed to make a big star with, and so and I remember at the time him saying, I don't want to leave. I said, no, you go and do your thing, and I'm really pleased for him. It's great because he deserves it. He's one of them guys that was real humble and real nice and polite, and he deserves to get on in life, you know.
That's good. That's good. So I remember when the Bobby Eaton team was being formed, you were looking for an American. They had the skits going.
I went back to England over Christmas, as I do most years, and I came back and Paul had left, and so they went to TV, and I said, Flair was saying, what are we going to do? And I remember seeing Bobby was at centre stage. Bobby was sat in the car, and it just came to me straight away. Bobby was sat in the audience, not the audience, in the chairs, you know, and I said, put me with Bobby. I said, we'll do this, do this. I just all seemed to ramble out of me, and he went, great idea, just go and do it.
Yeah.
So for a while they let us do it, and it was great. And I did have a problem with it a few years ago, that they stopped us doing it, because I thought it was a great thing, and they never gave us a chance to do it. Everybody in the company, anytime they wanted anything doing vignettes or filling in things for videos, they sent us to do it, because they liked all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it mounted down to the fact that we had nobody to work with.
Right.
The three teams that we were working against were the Nasty Boys, Harlem Heat, and Dick Slater and Jimmy Golden. But they were all heel teams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they'd have turned Harlem Heat baby faces, we'd have had a great run with them, but they didn't. So it was just heel teams, and it just didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
If you go back to watch those times, it was just match after match of just punch, kick, and it didn't mean anything. There's nothing, you know, nobody knew what, people didn't know who to cheer for, or who to, you know, they were going to boo us anyway, whatever we did.
Right.
But it just wasn't working, you know, and so, I don't know whose idea it was, but I think it was, they got rid of us, you know, and they wanted me to go back singles again. I was told that, and so I you know, I know how talented Bobby is, but I know the way they abused Bobby. So it was my idea. I suggested bringing Dave Taylor over to put with Bobby, and then I could go out and manage him. At the time, actually, it's when I had my knee operation, and I couldn't, for a while I couldn't work, but I could go out to the ring with them and do that kind of thing. And they split them up, and that was it.
They didn't want any part of that?
And I never understood why.
Well, Eric Bischoff, I mean, he tried to phase tag team wrestling out.
For a while.
He just doesn't go for that, or?
I don't know. I don't know his views on it. I don't.
Yeah.
You know, I don't talk to him.
So what's Bobby up to now? Because he doesn't do any TV. Do you keep in touch with him, or?
I keep in touch with him. Yeah. I mean, you know, he's the only one of the two people that, you know, I've gone through a lot of problems myself the last year or so, you know, and he's one of the two people that have kept in touch with me, I thought, you know, out of a lot of people that I've been close to, and he's the only one that's, Dave Taylor's one, and he's the other one that have you know, checked on me all the time. And
that's good.
So, but
he's still under contract with WCW.
Yeah.
But they don't use him?
That's
a shame.
Don't seem to. I know he's had a big part in making the new video game that
oh yeah?
From what I gather, they put him actually into the game as well as a thank you for spending a lot of time doing
that's
it.
good.
He was going up constantly to Canada all the time doing, you know, doing all the moves. They're supposed to be the best game ever, from what I gather, the new one.
Wow.
Completely outright, you know.
That's good. So when...
I think he missed a little bit of point on some of his, the WCW TV title reign. He had that quite a long time.
Yeah, 4 times.
4 times, yeah. What were some of your memorable, like, kind of matches during those reigns? Yeah.
Anything involving Ricky Steamboat was unbelievable for me to, from, you know, I came in January and by September I was wrestling Ricky Steamboat on pay-per-views, you know. It was a big deal for me, you know.
Yeah.
And the best matches we had actually were always at house shows, and there were good matches on TV, but never as good as we were having. I remember one we did in Germany, it was unbelievable, back at Hamburg, and I think about 40 something minutes, but it was unbelievable, you know, just everything was right at the right time, really good. Then there was the thing with Larry, it was good, some of it wasn't.
How was he to work with? Because that was...
Larry's excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, no two ways about that. Larry's excellent.
He could still go now, probably, if he wanted to.
Yeah. there was some of that, and then I don't know what happened with that, but we were just going on the thing, and then it just got cut.
That's when you were.
And I had no idea what it just got cut completely.
That you were hating the legends. Everybody calling them legends.
Yeah,
I remember that.
I did that thing, and then I did the thing with. I got it from Luger, and then I went to England for a while, and worked in England a little bit, and did Germany, and went backwards and forwards to Japan, but I stayed in England for like the summer. I did that, which was nice. Then I came back and did the thing with Prince, I believe, and then I did the thing with Dragon.
Right.
Dragon was the last person, and by that time, that was my undoing. From that beginning of that year with Dragon and everything, that's when my problems started.
I remember
I let myself go, I didn't train, I didn't do anything. I got too involved with what I was with my other problems, and that continued for a couple of years. And
you were the first one to really give Goldberg a battle. I remember when he was on his string, and I remember there was talk about that on the inside, or newsletters or whatever you want to call them, about the fact that you didn't want to get squashed or whatever, and you really tied him up.
No, that was something that bothered me. It bothers me with, and I go into this a little bit, but a lot of that I think had to do with me why I got let go from WCW before. I had the match with Bill Howard, and we were told to do a certain amount of time, and he'd never gone that long with anybody. And then we were told to do it by one of the people in the office, to do it the way we did it. And then we did it that way. We did it exactly move for move the way we were told. We came out, and then the other people in the office hated it. But the person who told us to do it didn't own up to it, and I took the fall for it. And then a few weeks later I got my notice. So I don't want to go into any further on that, because that was a bit. I needed my notice giving, because at that time, like I say, it took me the rest of that year until beginning of January this year to sort my life out, and I had a lot of personal problems with, and so I needed to get I needed letting go. I needed something doing.
Right.
Because I just let myself go, I let myself go as low as I could go, and. Everybody else could see it, but I couldn't, because I was too far gone in what I was doing. So, January this year, I went and spent 4 months to take time out and sort that out. Which I don't have to live like that anymore, and I'm glad.
Right.
Now I'm back better than I have been in a long time, and I'm glad I don't have to live like that. But that whole period, it's like we're going to the WWF. I was sick a lot as well. I had pneumonia 3 times. I had pneumonia 3 times in 5 months.
Wow.
And all kinds of viral infections and all kinds, but a lot of that was down to the abuse I was doing to myself, because my immune system was run down, so that's all my fault as well. But I was sick for a lot, and then when I came back, I worked a couple of shows for WWF, then I was in no fit state to work at all. They were very, very good to me, lenient with me, and I was in no fit state. I'd let myself go too much. And I went training at the training centre for a while, and at the end of the week I broke my leg and my ankle. And I had to have my ankle screwed together and that. So that kept me out for a few more months, and then it just escalated with my problems until when I did come back, it was, they give me all the chances they could possibly give me. I needed to.
Yeah.
It was check-out time.
I see. So everything with you and them, or everything with you and McMahon, is on good terms?
As far as I know, I did what I had to do.
That's good.
I did what I had to do, and there's not a lot I can say about it anymore.
Yeah.
They were very, very good to me. They were as good as they could possibly be, if not better. They kept me on the payroll longer than they should have done.
Right.
And it was me. I needed to check out and sort my life.
So how did you come back with WCW, which you're back now, right?
Well, I've always got on very well with WCW. I've always had a good relationship with WCW. like I said, there was a little bit of trouble when they let me go, but I needed letting go.
Right.
I'm glad they did let me go. I'm not sure if I'm glad they let me go. I needed the help that I got eventually, and so it's no good going back regretting what I'd done. I needed that, so if it took a year for me to sort that out, then it's took a year, and there's no good worrying about that. It's done, it's over with. That's it, it's gone, part of my life gone. But I got on very well with everybody, and a lot of the guys that knew that I'd been to rehab and everything, and came out and knew that I was not doing anything, had been asking what was happening and everything, so eventually got a phone call saying that they'd like to talk to me, and I went down there and I said, never had any problem with us, and I was very, very truthful about what I'd done. Asked me what I'd been doing, I told them. I told, you know what I mean, I told them I needed to do this, and I've done this for myself, and I've gone on record of proving that I can, I've signed aftercare contracts with a place where I went to treatment for 5 years, and I'll extend them as long as they want, to be random tested and anything they want, so to prove that, because I want this. I'm not, for anybody else, I'm doing it for me. Without staying sober, for me now, I've got nothing anyway, because I've got no wife, no kids, because it all nearly went anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm doing this for me. That's the main thing in my life now, is to stay sober, and the rest just falls into place, because it's all there for me to take and to have a part of if I keep myself in the right way,
Well, you got a second chance. A lot of people don't.
Exactly. I mean, I was looking at that thing in the Inquirer the other week, and there was 21 guys, and that was one accident, and how many was, drug related.
Yeah.
And I felt like I should have been on there. There's no two ways about that. I should have been on that list with them, because it got that bad. It got that bad where I should have died, and I don't know why I haven't. I know 3 times I've had to bring me back to life at certain stages.
Really?
That's how bad things got for me.
Now at least you can enjoy the success that you're going to obtain now, from now on. After.
Well, now I live my life differently, so, and the kind of thing that I do, I can apply to everything in life. It's a lot easier to get by, and before, I couldn't, I don't know how I ever got tied up in it to start with, but that doesn't matter how I did. It happened, and it's something. It's made me a better person for it. It's made me a better father to my family and to my children and everything. So if it's took 2 years and I've messed a lot of things up in between, I just turned 31. I've got plenty of years left. It's done in it. So.
Yeah. Well, on focus on the good moments. Do you have anything that stands out in your career that are highlights or memories that you have of wrestling that you look back on sometimes and just say, I'm glad I was there, or just good moments?
Too many to even start thinking about it. It's all been it's been one absolute pleasure.
You have your favorite opponent of all time?
Favorite opponent will be Robbie Brookside. He was my best friend. He was one of the people that taught me how to wrestle. He's a couple of years older than me. Dave Finley's another favourite opponent.
That was quite a feud that you had with him. You were taking it to the streets, and
yeah, we did. But years ago, it was in England. It was better in the fact that he was Irish and I was English in England, and it was, it was whoever he wrestled at that time. He was the hottest thing that was ever in England, as far as heat-wise.
Right.
It was a big, for England, a little small place like England, we used to have TV on a Saturday afternoon. There was no interviews, just 3 matches on. 2 of those matches would just be wrestling, 6 5-minute rounds of boring to death wrestling, and 1 match with a good villain, and he was the man, and we used to get 17 million viewers on a Saturday.
Wow.
That was the kind of figures we used to do.
That's incredible.
Not me personally.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, but the guys were doing it. And eventually it used to be 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and they moved it to 12 o'clock. Well, most people work a 5.5-day week in England. They work Saturday morning, so that cut the viewers down completely. they just, nobody was there to watch it, you know.
Right.
People, I mean, it was that kind of, they kept messing around, and basically they just didn't want wrestling on TV. The people that were in charge of the wrestling on TV in England thought it was working class. They wanted to get away from all that in the 80s. They wanted to get away from. They stopped showing British sitcoms and started showing all the American sitcoms, and they just thought it was more upmarket to everything. They started showing American football, and that, nobody understood it, you know. But that was what they were trying to dictate to people what they should watch.
Wow.
And it all fell flat in the beginning of the 90s, but wrestling never picked up because never took off again, because all the wrestlers basically either got jobs or went to live in Germany, or, you know, a few of us came over here, and, you know, it just all just broke up, and there's just not the talent there to get it back anymore.
That's it.
But as far as I keep going back to highlights of my first time I wrestled Ric Flair it was in Cardiff in Wales. The first tour I went over. That was a big honour, you know. My mum was in the crowd as well. My mum left me when I was really young, you know, but she lives near there, and she came. You know, big deal for me, you know, when you see him walking down the thing. You know, sound like a fan there, but it was a big deal for me. Especially we had a real good match as well. Wrestling Ricky Steamboat at any time was always a highlight for me.
I think it's a good idea that someone like Ric Flair or the older guys, that they hang on and stay around as long as possible, or maybe you think it's time for them to, you know.
If they're still doing their job right, why shouldn't they be hanging around? I can't understand why guys, and it's half legitimate, get jealous about guys, but they're still doing their job right, and they're still doing it, and still people still want to see them.
There's pretty much nothing different about Ric Flair now than there was.
So it doesn't make any sense to me that it's time. Sometimes you got to look at yourself and think, what am I not doing right for them to want to put me into that position? I've never had that kind. You know, guys get that where they think, you know, I deserve to. Nobody deserves anything. Nobody deserves anything. You know, or it should be given anything. You work to get what you deserve. You know what I mean? You shouldn't just, you don't, well, I'm good, so I deserve to have this. No. Go out and prove you deserve. Prove that people want to watch you. Prove that you can carry this on and keep going, you know. And, you know, like the guys that say, well, I don't get, Shawn Michaels did it, because Steve Austin's done it. Nobody's, you know what I mean? Nobody's, they've gone out and took over and turned this business into something that, you know, nobody would have ever expected it to be as big as it is now. And they've done it, you know. So it's just, it's sour grapes on the part of guys that maybe need to look at their own performances to, you know what I mean? The guys that, that's my personal opinion. I've never said, you know, there's been times when I felt like, certain times when I felt like I could have been taken a notch higher I had a real good run for a few years there, you know. And the pinnacle of it was different times with the TV, the first couple of times, and you know, and then I think it like got to where when I worked with Sting at that one Great American Bash or something, you know. I mean, after that I sort of got dropped off the face a bit, you know, and I thought I could have been carried on, but that's just the way it goes, you know. Me sitting around moping about it's not going to get me anywhere, is it? You know, you've just got to pick yourself up and start again, and go out and do your thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, we could go on for a long time about this kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Ric Flair, still, people want to watch him, he's still the best performer there is. You know, there is certain guys that, you know, I'm not going to mention it, but they can't perform anymore. Certain guys can't perform. So, yeah, time to let somebody.
Yeah. You know. Well, I mean, it all depends on the person. And like you said, I mean, even if somebody can't perform, as long as people are tuning in, that's what it boils down to, you know?
And it doesn't, people go, oh, well, look at this guy, you know, he doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter. If you're over, you're over. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're over, you can go out and do that, and people, if Elvis was alive today, he'd still be packing out everywhere. and he could be 500 pounds, you know, and they could be feeding through a tube. It doesn't matter. People would still go because it's Elvis Presley and he's over. And so it doesn't, you know what I mean? It's got nothing to do. It's, once you're over, you're over. And as long as people want to watch you, then, you know, it's just
great. All right, well, I don't really have anything else to cover. Do you have any more questions in the background?
You think of Randy Savage, just punching throwing some names around.
Randy Savage, I think he's a tremendous performer.
Very big again now.
You know, he's gone from, I've been sat at home the last few months, I watched him going from not being on the shows at all to putting himself right in the top spot and doing it properly, getting heat, going out and getting heat. He knows how to do his job well.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, nobody can knock that. You can't knock success in whatever form it comes in. Yeah, you know what I mean? People all the guys want to be jealous and knock success and go stand. He's successful and he's always been successful and he goes out and he's within a few weeks. I mean, how long really is it since he came back and started doing this thing? It's not been that long, has it?
No.
It seemed to go from one or two. The thing with
months.
yeah, I mean, from what I can just remember, it started with Rick and that referee guy, Charles.
Yeah. Kind of started.
He started like half babyface, and within 2 weeks he was the most hated guy in the company. You know, he got boom, and he done all. So how can you knock success like that? How can you knock somebody and go out and do that?
He's got that whole gift of speech going.
And he's got that speech thing, the whole thing.
Plus he's got the girls with him, so it gives him that.
And he looks as good as he's ever looked.
Oh yeah.
Not better.
Definitely.
He looks great.
Definitely.
He looks great. The image is good. He does his thing.
What are your feelings about Hulk Hogan?
I think he's great.
Same thing.
You know, people.
We're not trying to get you to badmouth anybody.
Yeah, I'll. If I don't want to say anything, I won't say it. Hulk Hogan. I was talking to Jimmy Hart the other day about this. A lot of guys, when they get old or older in this business, talk about how there's no wrestling left and how guys can't work and the work's crap, you know. And they don't look at the fact the guys that were the most successful are the ones that went out and entertained. It was nothing to do with working. It was to a certain degree. It was to do with entertaining. And it seems to be the older wrestlers get, the more they seem to think it was real when they were doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or more real. You know that they do. They seem to. You go to these wrestling conventions, it's like listening to the 1948 Olympics or something. You know, they're talking like it was all real. You know, the clothes, the real thing, and people would die. That's the way I get off it. You know, and it makes me laugh because they all seem to do. You know, the distance themselves from the guys what we're doing today.
Right.
Because we do whatever we do and it's working. It's a disgrace, you know. We wouldn't do that in our days. I mean, they used to, what kind of stuff they were doing years ago, you know what I mean? They do anything to get money, you know what I mean? And yet, all of a sudden, that legitimate, what we're doing is not. Hulk Hogan knows how to do his job. There's not, you know, he's tremendous. He goes out, he's going to be a heel. He goes from being Superman Hulk Hogan, which admittedly was dying off of it, people were sick of it. He's turned heel, and then straight away he's going out, he's begging his car and he's pulling faces, and people hated him, and it's great. He knows how to do his character, you know. And you know, personal opinion, he did get, from when you know, I was there when in WCW, and people just got sick of seeing that Hulkamania thing and all that.
Right.
But as soon as he turned out, boom, he knew exactly what to do. It's like watching Jerry Lawler, you know, if he goes out in Memphis, he's going to do his thing, and he's babyface no one. Anywhere else in the world, he knows exactly what to do. Those kind of guys know what they're doing, you know. It doesn't matter what what his punches look like or what.
Those are the guys that usually stay on top.
There's the guys that stand because they know what they're doing.
There was a little trend going there about around that time, like where Hogan was a baby face and Bret Hart was a baby face and Shawn Michaels were a baby face, and they kind of got turned into heels, I thought, by the actual audience. Kind of got sick of they started actually rooting for the heels more, like the general, it was unheard of back in the 80s, you know. During the mid-90s, it seemed like that started to be a trend. I can remember when Shawn Michaels was like a baby face in that case. That's when Austin kind of came in, and everybody started going with the heels. It kind of happened to WCW too a little bit with that. So, you know, Hogan kind of disappeared and came back, and that's when the Outsiders came in. Oh man.
Well, more of a trend towards the heel being popular and the changing of the fan
Yeah.
That's just society, though. I mean,
Like Bret Hart.
it's very easy to explain to people. People ask, you know, that don't know anything about wrestling. They'll ask questions, you know, are you a good guy or a bad guy? It's very easy to put into perspective to them that, well, you watch Arnold Schwarzenegger on TV and he's killing people and yet you cheer for him. That's the way society is nowadays.
That's kind of what society kind of turned it.
People walk around with Charles Manson shirts on, you know, thinking, you know, making him into some kind of, yeah, you know what I mean, and Ed Gein shirts on all the time, you know, and stuff, making these guys. So that's just Hannibal Lecter, you know. I mean, that's society, and that's the way it's gone. As far as going back the other way, I don't think there's a chance of that, you know. There's very few people nowadays can go out smiling and, you know, kidding. They just put them out the building.
Other than maybe Mick Foley can get away with it, huh? He's kind of like the deranged smiling guy.
But that's different.
Yeah, like a lunatic type smiling.
Jack's got presence. There's people that are great workers and there's great talent. But Mick Foley is a wrestling presence.
Yeah.
Just as God was a presence. Mick's a presence in this business. And if you understand what a presence is, you know what I mean. Mick could go out there and just, like I said, lift his finger up and people would like him. When I first came to WCW in '93, he was having a feud with Paul Orndorff, and I used to watch it every night. I used to go and watch him come out, and just him walking out the ring, walking to one side, and he's got presence. That's something that I don't see anybody else have. I don't see anybody in the wrestling business got what he's got of a presence of just having an aura around him that people are going to like whatever he does, you know. He can get them to hate him for a while, which he does in a good way when he wants to do it, but they're always going to go around to like, because he's got something about him that is just special that I don't see anybody else having.
One of his proteges or idols was Bruiser Brody, which he got some of his mannerisms maybe a little bit from Brody, and maybe a little bit from Abdullah, from the lunatic kind of, you know, Abdullah Butcher had a little bit of a lunatic kind of fringe where
he's got his own thing and it works.
Walk to the side and...
Yeah. He's got his own thing and it works well.
Yeah.
I think it's great, you know, there's nobody like him for me. I've always... That's something about him. I wrestled him in one of the Bahamas, I think. There's hardly anybody there. I was popping just watching him come to the ring, you know, even with a few people there, you can tell he's got this something about him that just, I don't see anybody else, and I've never seen anybody have it like him. He's got that something, and it's anything I can use a word for it, it's a presence he's got around him that makes people react differently than they react to other people. They really feel what he feels, I think. And Danny Boy Collins, a guy from England, friend of mine from England, he was the best babyface I ever knew. He could have women on the front row crying, actually sobbing, crying. He was that good, you know, and from day one, I remember seeing him when he was 16. He's a couple of years older than me. He went from sitting on the front row and the promoter said, you know, I heard you do a bit of wrestling, to being the British champion, middleweight champion, within about 2 weeks of him turning 16. And he just had this something that was just, you know, I mean, when I started, I was absolutely rotten. Absolutely diabolical. Selling guys down the power plant last week, they were saying, you know, we're trying to do, I said, you've all got an head start on me. So believe it or not, I said, two years in this job, working 21 shows a week, I was rotten, absolutely rotten. I just had no natural talent for it. I've had to learn it and pick people's brains and steal stuff off people and keep it, you know, and make it mine and different stuff. But Danny Collins, and he just had it. He just had that. From day one, he could do it. He could just do this job and do it as good as anybody. And he had that thing. I mean, women on the front row just sobbing their hearts out, like watching, you know, when you see films of the people that seen the Beatles in the early 60s when they'd be couldn't
like
breathe.
There'd
be women like that, just couldn't, just look at him, and he used to crawl on his hands and knees and look at him, you know, like that, and they'd be crying, and it's unbelievable. Not too many people have that. The two people now, and the one especially that I see that has got the most talent that I've seen in a long, long time, is that the blonde kid out the Hardy Boys. If he doesn't get crippled up through doing so, he's got as much talent as I've ever seen in anybody. You know, in the next, whatever the matter, he's only 20 or 21 or something. In the next few years, that those two kids have got as much talent as I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the blonde one, he's got something about him. And you know, everything keeps, and I hope it does for them, like, you know, they don't get hurt too early, and everything goes well for them. It should be endless how far they could take this.
Mm-hmm.
Because as guys come along, like Shawn Michaels took this to something that you know, it was just unbelievable the way he took this business. And, you know, he made it into a complete different, you know, like the time I was talking to somebody today about, I was luckily enough to be a fan watching. The wrestling changed, the whole face of wrestling changed in very late 1979 and early 80s in England. And just luckily at that time, in England at that time, it was Mark Rocco, who used to wrestle in Japan as Black Tiger, Volvo Rocco, Marty Jones, original Tiger Mask, Sammy Lee, and Dynamite. And those four guys were all working in England, and they'd all been to Mexico, and they'd all been to Japan, and they all had English style, and they'd all got their own little things that they did. And the matches that those four guys were putting on, the kind of style that Chris does nowadays, Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, they started that style. They'd seen guys fly around Mexican style, they'd seen guys do Japanese stuff, suplexes, they'd seen English guys, but they were the four guys that put it together into the kind of style that Chris and Eddie do now, where it's not Mexican, the kind of Mexican flying around where it's like dancing, they're not touching each other. They were doing the flying, but, you know, with a lot of impact behind, high impact kind of, you know, intense kind of wrestling. And I was lucky enough to be around watching that, and it's absolutely phenomenal, the matches they used to have. Any four of them interchange with each other, which was happening every week on TV. There'd be a different pairing, and it just went on, and then Sammy Lee went back to Japan and became Tiger Mask, and he brought in Rocco to be Black Tiger. Dynamite went there and then went to Calgary and was going, and then came to here, and then the only one that never really went anywhere was Marty. Marty Jones was another guy that helped train me. And I don't know why, Marty was always a big name in England, but so much talent before him, you know, and they really changed the face of this. Most people wouldn't know that because they weren't around, and you know, they don't, but you know, that kind of style that Chris does, and you know, they were the guys that originated it. And it did change the face because everybody's got their own thing, but their kind of style is going to, that aggressive wrestling, high impact, whatever kind of style is going to take this on to the next.
Yeah.
That's the kind of style that the guys that are really good nowadays do.
Do you ever, what's your thoughts on Extreme Championship Wrestling? Do you ever get to watch any of that at all? Or?
I haven't watched it for a while because they took it off in Atlanta, but I like it. I've always liked it.
Do you think it has an influence on what
Yes, of course it has.
WCW, WWF has done? Because, you know, a couple of years ago, that was actually being voted as like one of the most popular ones.
It's obvious. I mean, both have got hardcore things. I mean, WCW, call it an extreme, you know what is it?
There's a hardcore. They got Sandman, James Fullington there. It's hardcore hack now.
Yeah, but they're always saying these guys take it to the extreme. They always mention extreme.
Extreme.
So they're taking. They've had such a big influence on everybody. What everybody does, you know.
Well, they've developed a hardcore title for the WWF. They have they have the same thing going on with the WCW, where they have the hardcore matches. I mean, hardcore wasn't mentioned ever until you know ECW started. Ran the down the throat.
But actually, probably ECW got a lot of that from the garbage matches in Japan too, like FMW. And they're the ones I guess that might have started Paul Heyman's thinking on that a little bit too, right?
It doesn't really matter where it comes from, you know, what they made it.
In the States, they
made it in the States, and that's continued over into mainstream wrestling now.
You think anybody you really admire in ECW that you've seen?
I like a lot of the guys
A lot of
there.
the
I
guys.
really do. I watch their things, and Sabu works. Just work ethic that he's got. He's unparalleled. With Jack is another one. With Cactus that.
Yeah.
And I know work. If they have to. It's like that Monty Python thing, and they all growl it. Come and fight me. I've only, just no arms and no legs. I think that'd be him. He'd go to the ring on. Pulling himself along with his teeth if he had to, make sure he give people the money's worth, Rob Van Dam, I wrestled him quite a bit when I first came to WCW, and he's just gone on strength to strength and everything. I always liked Shane's talking, and I like that from early on when he first started doing that, when he left WCW and started doing it. There's a lot of guys there I like what it's great to see Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Jerry Lynn.
Yeah.
Jerry Lynn, because when he was in WCW, just and you could see he got all the talent in the world. It's just, he took him to go there to show everybody what he could really do, because he was just wasted in WCW before.
JL.
Yeah.
What were your feelings on the whole Owen Hart tragedy?
It's just a terrible thing. Last few weeks I keep hearing people putting the blames on it there and everywhere. That it's just something that shouldn't have happened, should never have happened, and it happened. And there's no blame to be. I'm not going to put blame on anybody for it. This is a wrestling business, and we do things like that. If that's needed to come out of the scene, and we're going to do it.
Right.
And it's just what happens. This is what we do for a living, and it's just an unfortunate thing that happened. And it's a dreadful, terrible, terrible tragedy to everybody, and it should never have happened. But there's no putting blame on. Okay, they can blame the harnessing, but blaming for taking wrestling too far. You can't say that, because this is what wrestling is. We're an outlandish entertainment where we're gonna keep pushing the envelope, or trying to, and that's just something that's come about of it. And it's terrible that it's happened, but
I see.
Your views on some of the luchadors in WCW, and have you ever worked in Mexico much?
Never been to Mexico. I've always wanted to go. Mexican Star Wrestling, the guys that kick it into gear and work that style that we were talking about, where like Psychosis and Ray and Engelbert Humphrey, what's his name?
Ubi Carrera.
Yeah, Juventud Guerrero. Those guys that kick it into gear, great. There's a lot of others as well, but the kind of I don't like the not touching each other and flying around and hardly making any contact with each other. That I don't like, because my personal style is getting in there and hitting people hard, and not stamping my foot on a lot of stuff, and that's the kind of style that I like.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I don't appreciate what they do, and some of it's great, but I just like to see people steaming a little bit more and get more aggressive.
I think they're a little more aggressive when they're actually down south of the border than they are.
Yeah,
and WCW, sometimes they are treated more like something you'd see in Ringling Brothers or Chipperfield Circus. You know what I mean? They're kind of like making light of them at times.
Well,
especially when they bring them out in those little battle royals and things. They
don't really put angles around them.
No,
they just come out and they do their thing. They
Other
jump
than
around.
Ray and Hoovy, they do angles with occasionally. Well, Ray had a big angle, of course, but
with the masks.
I wasn't too pleased with
No,
it.
I don't get that at all.
So there's a long future of them, I don't know.
That whole thing with the mask is that was Ray, he was the poster boy. You go on the subways in Los Angeles a few years ago, and he was the poster boy. 2 posters up for WCW when it was really hot on a Monday night.
Yeah.
One was Hulk Hogan and the other one was Ray flying through the air like that.
And
that mask made it, it was just, I don't know.
Still,
it's just not...
That mask is still very popular for people who deal in the mask. souvenir stands and stuff too. I think Hoovy kind of pulled it off because he kind of has that rock star look, you know.
He's got that
Engelbert,
look.
as you call.
Yeah, Engelbert Humperdinck.
Who do you like in Japanese wrestling now or current? Anybody you think that's up and coming over there? I'm sure there's a lot of people over there.
Otani, big fan of his. Real big fan of his. It's doing me head in now that I can't think of his name, but I was looking at the doll today.
Okay, yeah, and Oshana.
That's bad because I used to train with him all the time over there. He wears the black mask.
The black,
he was in Germany when I was there in '96 doing that. When I went with a TV belt and everything. But I was training with Otani and what's his name? That's driving me mad.
Okay.
Him and Otani and Nagata as well. Yuji that was here. I used to train with the three of them every day. Every tour I went on, we used to get in the ring, and all four of us would wrestle with each other, and I'd show them bits of English. They asked me to show them English stuff because, you know, like I said, I used to send all their young guys from the dojo to England. Well, when England pretty much closed down, they weren't learning that style anymore. So they asked me, and I used to go in and train with them. And I really like them guys.
You ever work with Great Muda?
Yes, unfortunately.
Unfortunately?
Yeah, one of the low points of my... very disappointing for me. I've been quite vocal about that at certain times. I was disappointed in his work ethic and his... it just seemed like he got no respect or care for this business, and it really bothered me. When I injured my knee originally with Chris Benoit in Japan, I went back 2 weeks later to do a championship with him. And I got, you know, I'm not complaining about being injured. I was quite happy to go, you know. But I was taped up from here to here, couldn't hardly bend my leg. And I had to drag him around for like 17 minutes. He just wouldn't do anything, wouldn't get up. And I felt insulted that he wouldn't put the effort in to work with me when he knows we could have had an incredibly good match. And I felt as though he thought I was beneath him working with. That's the way I was trying to, you know, before the match, he sat there with a cigarette in his mouth. And he's like, oh, he just, you know, I'm tired, I don't want to do anything. And I don't care if I never have to have anything to do with him again, you know. And if it's, you know, I don't get usually too political on things, but that's how much it bothered me, the way his attitude was. He just got no ethic, no work ethic whatsoever. And I really did feel like that. I came away from there fuming, feeling like, you know, I was beneath his contempt for him to even bother to put a bit of effort into the match. Couldn't even be bothered to waste his time with me, and that bothered me, you know, because everybody else, when I go to Japan, I have great matches with them. You know, some people might not appreciate them, but I've never had any complaints about the matches I have over there, you know, and I've always enjoyed them, not with him. I wouldn't pay him in brass buttons, mate. I just don't think he's worth anything. That's my, after that one time, it just, no respect whatsoever for him. So that's I'd like to go and spend the rest of my career in Japan. Talk out the window.
You want to let Mr. Regal get some sleep?
Yeah, I guess so. You want to go?
If you ask me some more things, I'm quite...
What else can you think of? Anything? You just out of questions for Mr. Regal tonight?
I'd love to hear him badmouth some more people.
Oh, yeah?
I don't think you get me just saying that Muta's the only one that I...
Muta's the most hated. Muta's the most disliked right now, and that's about all.
With me?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's all, yeah. That's the
I
way
he's just not worthy of, you know, he's just, I don't know. And it's not only me, you know, I mean, I know a lot of people that feel the same way about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I never knew that about him that much,
You know, and if you ever get the chances of that tape, you know, and I think Dave Meltzer put it in his sheet. He said it was like Regal wrestled 17 minutes with a tackling dummy.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like, dragging a bag of sand around for trying to make him look like he could do, he wanted to do something. Couldn't even be bothered to make his own comeback. It was just like, as if he couldn't even, it was like I wasn't there, you know. It was pathetic, really bad, you know.
What's your thoughts on Scott Hall? I know you mentioned earlier in the...
I get on very
you
well
were
with Scott.
friends with
Yeah,
Scott.
I've been friends with Scott for a long time. 10 years now. We've always gotten good together.
What were your feelings on when you went to the WWF that they didn't keep the Lord Steven Regal gimmick, the man's man gimmick?
Well, that was their choice, you know. I mean, when Steve Austin went there, he wasn't Stone Cold Steve Austin anymore. You've got to give people leeway if they think they've got a good idea and it might work. I don't, you know, it might have worked very well. It was my problem that it didn't, you know.
Did you like the gimmick? Because I thought the gimmick was okay. I mean, if it had time to develop.
I had no idea where it was going.
Right.
It could have been going right, leading back to doing what I really don't know it. And I was quite willing, I was very willing to do it because I knew they were going to invest in money in me. They were going to do the right thing. And if it wasn't working, they'd have changed it to something else. So I was quite willing to do it, you know.
Right.
I couldn't really see the point in it at the time, but I wasn't, you know, I wasn't going to say, well, I was quite happy to go along and do it the best as I could. The only problem was I was in no fit state to do what I was asked to do. I thought I was. I couldn't say that I had a problem, but I wasn't. I wasn't in any fit state to be doing what I was asked to do. They were asking me to do things, and I thought I was doing them to my best of my ability. I wasn't, because I wasn't in the right, you know. I needed to, and they point that, you know, they helped me realise that, and that, you know, in a way they saved my life, and that there's, you know, I can go on record as saying that, you know, people at the WWF saved my life because they put me in the direction of getting help that I needed, and I wouldn't have got it otherwise. I'd have ended up being another dead wrestler in a hotel room somewhere, because that's how bad my life was for a while. But I couldn't see that. I really couldn't. I thought it was everybody else's fault. So they put me in that. As far as, you know, people, you know, I know there would be people think, you know, I blew it and I've done this and that, but I don't care, because if I'd have kept going with it and it had been successful, like I say, it'd have been a year or two and I've ended up either dead or in jail or, you know, or I'd have just died from abuse, you know. I'd have ended up in the gutter or whatever, and I'd have fell out with everybody in the process. So the gimmick itself would have eventually, one way or another, worked. They're not going to pay somebody not to, and you know, they looked after me. They're not going to pay somebody to have them not make them any money. You know, and me when I'm straight and when I'm doing my job, I can do it as well as anybody. You know, my style's different and anything, but as far as talking wise and work wise, I can work with anybody and I can talk as good as anybody. In my way, you know, we're all different, but in my way I can do my job as well as anybody, and I'm as professional as anybody. So they would have made it work, you know. They're not going to use me. They'd have made me make them money. So it would have eventually come round to where it would have been good.
What's your views on all the internet rumors and like these internet sites that get popped up? I know we were talking a little bit brief on that on the road. You mentioned
if you got any idea some of the damage that kind of stuff does to people, don't print anything that you do not know is 100% accurate. There was things last year when I was having my trouble, saying that I was turning up at shows drunk, which is a total lie. In fact, drinking wasn't my thing at all, you know, but saying I was drunk at shows and couldn't do, and which wasn't the truth. Other things causing trouble between. Somebody said that I tried to make somebody look a fool while I was up there, while I was wrestling, and they said, try to make him look a fool the same way he tried to make Goldberg look stupid. You know, totally out of context. Now,
And
Then you know, somebody the other week, Dave Taylor told me somebody the other week, while I was in treatment, said that something Regal's washed up and this and that, and at the end of it, who cares? I don't, you know. Now, I've got my 11-year-old nephew in England reading this, and going and telling my dad and my sister, and they're all upset, you know, and doing damage to people's careers when it's not necessary. Now, that's part of what you do, and you've got to expect that, you know, you've got to expect to be knocked down, but I'll do enough things for people to get on me about, or enough things for people to knock me about without making stuff up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to do things that's going to annoy people, and I'm going to do things that are going to be wrong, and I'm going to do things that people don't like. And there'll be plenty of times for them to pick me up on that. But don't add to it, you know what I mean? There's no need to add to it. And especially
do you believe that some, I know that Paul Heyman at a press conference was saying that sometimes he will have stuff actually put on to there to actually start heat, which a lot of people thought that, I'm not going to mention any names, that some people were doing earlier this year, which is a couple in wrestling that have been pretty controversial, and I know what I'm talking about. This is when some things have been like thrown around just to start.
That's all well and good. That's
a little
fine.
heat, and then, you know,
but you know, it makes me wonder some of these guys that do this, and it really does. You know, I know one of the kids that does it is a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, so
he's a 12-year-old kid.
How much knowledge?
He should be outside playing on his bike, you know. Not trying to tell people how they should run a wrestling business, you know what I mean? Now he's got his opinions as being a fan, that's fine. But not to try and tell somebody how they should and shouldn't be, or what's good and what's bad. You know, a lot of people that I really don't know too many people that are really smart to this business, because most of the wrestlers aren't. And that's true. That's coming from somebody, and I do consider myself very knowledgeable in this business. Most of the wrestlers aren't smart to this business in all aspects. And so people that think they're smart, and because they say things that contradict themselves. Well, this guy's going out and being a jobber, and that. He's being a jobber because he's told to be a jobber.
Exactly.
He can't help that. That's what his role is. If he's going to go out and get beat in 3 minutes, what is he supposed to do in 3 minutes? He can't go out and outshine somebody that he's putting over in 3 minutes. So he's not going to. He can't possibly look that good himself. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Sometimes it's kind of an art of jobbing too, you know.
Yeah.
You can be real good at that.
You know,
sure, there's wrestlers that have made names from being jobbers that are still known now. S.D. Jones, Pistol Pete Sanchez. I mean, these are great jobbers.
You know, guys get their own, you know, knocking people for, and sometimes, you know, you're told to do certain things a certain way. You can't always do your best, and it's true that sometimes you're told to cut back a little bit and to do certain things a certain way. They're supposed to be smart. They should figure out, you know, or if they don't really know, then keep quiet about it. Don't say, well, this guy's going down the dumps. He's not doing as much as he should have. This guy's doing this or this guy's doing that. Wait and find out. Wait and see the whole picture 6 months later when it's happened. You may be a reason for this happening now. Or going off the subject a bit in the way I'm trying to put this across, because I get a bit wound up with a lot of this stuff. You know, it gets a bit too much, like. And you know, that is like a lot of guys in this job. When I could never understand the sheets and that when I started. You know, to me that was an invasion of my, you know, privacy on my business. But I understand it now, and I understand what Dave Meltzer puts in his thing, and he's a very, very, very knowledgeable man. You know. And you know, some of the stuff he writes is very, very, you know, intelligent stuff. But sometimes, you know, his opinion is not the be-all and end-all, and he should say, well, this is my opinion, but he doesn't. He puts, I think this guy's as bad as it gets. Not Well, I think this guy's as bad as it gets. I think is the key to this.
Yeah.
This is my opinion, not. But you know, that's a problem with WCW, that people in Turner's or Time Warner read these things and take his word for it. Now this is his word against what, you know, and it can affect you in your business, you know. And it can get a bit annoying. And a lot, you know, Dave's very, like I say, it doesn't happen a lot with him because he's very knowledgeable on what he does, but now this internet thing's taken off. You've got people that have no concept of this business at all, that don't have any idea about it, but people are reading this stuff and believing it.
Yeah.
Because they don't know this guy sits in his bedroom, you know, because his mum won't let him go out and play, but he's got nothing better to do than, you know what I mean, than try and ruin the wrestling business.
Yeah.
They don't know that. These people in Time Warner will sit there, oh, this is a pro wrestling thing. What's this happening here? They don't realise, you know what I mean? That's the kind of thing that's going on, and it can be very harmful in the long run.
Joey Styles brought up now from ECW that was some kind of big incident that was going on with ECW, and he mentioned, like you did, that the kid was actually like a 10 or 12 or 14-year-old kid, and there was actually like a lawsuit going on with the kid or something because something they had like slandered on someone in ECW. Can't quite remember what the incident was. This is a couple months back.
What's your opinion on this?
I never heard of what he was saying, but as far as the internet, I agree with you 100%. People that anybody can get on the internet and have an opinion about stuff they just don't know. And I mean, I'm nothing more than a mere fan, and I would never, ever do that. Get on the internet and spread a rumor about somebody, or it's just beyond me that anybody can, you know, form an opinion about somebody or slander somebody that they really don't know. I mean, you know, it's an entertaining show. It's like anything. It's like a movie.
What's real bad are all these rats that work in the offices that give out people's business, you know. They've got nothing better to do than give out, you know, stuff that's going on. That I don't understand that at all, you know. At one stage, this is a few years back when there wasn't many things on the internet, there was something in one of them about how much money WCW was going to offer me, and I hadn't even gone in to talk about my new deal, and when I went in, that was what they offered me. I said, I already heard this. They said, how? I said, it was on somebody had told me it was on the computer.
I think maybe people shouldn't put so much stock into it, and maybe the
But that's the
executives...
problem. That's the problem. No, I don't put too much stock in it, but people do.
Yeah.
And then you've got to... You know, when I was in treatment, there was one thing that somebody put in the treatment centre I was at. Now that's part of that, you know, you shouldn't be saying where people do what, you know, if I've got personal problems, I'm sorting them out. That's my business.
Exactly.
But my kids go to school with, perhaps they don't, you know, they're dealing with it in their way. But they've got to go to school with kids that come up to them and, you know, older kids, hey, your dad's, you know, a drunken junkie, basically, you know what I mean? I had to deal with that because of things that were on the internet, you know. Now, that's all part of being in a sort of limelight thing. And, you know, I used to look, when I used to hear people moaning about the press, you know, film stars and that, I think, oh, jack up. But when it happens to you, and it starts affecting the quality of life that my children have to lead because of that, then it starts to, I understand it now. I didn't understand it before. I used to, you know, I hear about George Clooney moaning about, and I used to think, you've got to accept that. But when it's happening to you and it's ruining your quality of life and affecting your children, and your children coming home and won't do the schoolwork and they're crying all the time, then it starts to bother you, you know.
Definitely.
Because some kids come up older than my kid telling my kid that the dad's a drunken junkie. And you know what I mean? That's
it's no good.
You don't need that, you know.
Maybe we'll wrap things up. I've got one. This week's TV guide seems to have any word. And what is your opinion on this thing going on with Sable? Do you want to get involved with that, or?
I don't want to get involved with it whatsoever because to me it's something that's going on. There's nothing I can. My opinions on it aren't they're no good to anybody anyway. You know, whether one way or the other, what my opinions are on this, there's no he's no use to anybody because he's not going to affect the outcome of a lawsuit.
Nah.
Maybe when it's all over, they'll ask me again.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I thought while it was going on, because I don't want to be involved in anything saying that I've said anything.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep my views private to me until it's all over with, and then.
All right. Well, we thank Mr. Regal for his time coming out.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Great hanging out with you.
Thank you.
And we'll wrap it up.
We're ready to go.